Hello, everyone, and welcome to Books on Tap Live. My name is Harmony Defo, and today we're talking to Bryanne Rajamannar, author of Felt Flower Workshop, a modern guide to crafting gorgeous plants and flowers from fabric. This event is sponsored by C&T Publishing, and we're giving away a limited number of copies of the book. Enter to win by going to publishersweekly.com/Rajamannar. We've also dropped a link to the page in the comments section on Facebook and YouTube. During the event, audience members can always ask questions by writing them in the comments section on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll try to answer as many as we can after the interview. If you'd like to receive notifications of future events, please sign up at publishersweekly.com/booksontap live. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our lovely guest. Thank you so much, Brynn, for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting.
No, we're happy to have you. Just to get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, any personal history you want us to know before we jump into the book.
Well, I live in Jacksonville, Florida with my husband and my two daughters. I am a Florida native. I grew up in the panhandle of Florida in a small coastal town called Apalachicola. So if you're an oyster fan, you may have heard of it. And I moved to Jacksonville to attend Jacksonville University. I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in dance. So always had a creative streak. And I've been here ever since. I taught dance for a long time. I studied interior design a bit, and I actually worked in financial services for 8+ years, which is where I met my husband. And I started making felt flowers after the birth of my daughter, so almost 9 years ago. And so that's where we are. We love it here. We love being on the water. And so it's a good life here.
That's great. I love Florida as well. Can't go wrong with the beach, right?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about the book. So what's your inspiration for writing it, and how did you come up with the idea, and what inspired you to create this?
The book was really kind of a natural transition from the workshops I had been teaching. For many years, I was only making and selling flowers. And then I started doing the workshops and making kits. And so the book was kind of a good opportunity to catalog a lot of those flower designs and project designs that I had been coming up with over the years. And most of them just lived in my head, really. I don't have patterns or step-by-step instructions to remind myself. I just kind of, wing it every time. And it's pretty consistent, but it was a nice opportunity to really get all of that down on paper in one place. And the inspiration for the book were all of the projects that I've taught. And there are a lot of new projects in the book that I hadn't done before working on the book. And the way it's set up is two main parts. The first half of the book is learning to make individual flowers. So you learn to make a peony, an anemone, different types of greenery, and all the individual stems. And then the second half of the book is the projects that you make with those flowers. You can obviously just put them on stems and put them in a vase in your house, or you can turn them into a wreath. You can turn them into a bouquet or a centerpiece, a garland. I think there are about 15 projects that we make with the flowers. Yeah, those are the air plant terrariums. So that's kind of how it's set up. And then in the beginning, I have some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way that I share, and then my favorite tools, and just a little information about different kinds of felt, because you may be surprised to know that there are different kinds of felt, and it matters what kind you use to see how your project is going to turn out.
That's great. We'll talk a little bit later about the different types of felt. I have a couple questions about that. I know a bunch of our viewers do as well. But can you tell us a bit about your business, Flourish Felt Flower Company, and how did you get your start? Did you get seed funding? How did you get your start?
My start and my business in general has been kind of a slow and steady model. I didn't jump in knowing everything and with a lot of money to invest in it. It really started very small. My daughter was 1 year old, and I had some felt left over from a mobile project I had made for her before she was born, and I made her a little barrette, and I wanted it to be floral. So I kind of came up with that design, and I really liked the way that it turned out. So I started playing around with it, and I came up with a design for one type of hair barrette with a felt flower on it, and that was it. And I decided that I was going to be brave enough to put it on Etsy, and it was just the one thing. And then not long after, my sister got married, and she wanted me to make boutonnieres for her wedding, which I did. And then I put those on Etsy and, posted pictures on social media. And that can be really the hardest thing, is taking those first steps and realizing that you can start small. And then as it progressed and I started getting some positive feedback and generating a little bit of income, I gradually, started playing around, experimenting with different flowers and becoming more curious and like what the possibilities were. And then the ideas start to come. But as far as seed money goes, that was just, starting with a little bit. And luckily this craft does not require you to purchase any expensive equipment or materials. Felt is very affordable. You need a sharp pair of scissors. And you can really get going on that really easily. And so then once you start to make a little income, then you can reinvest it. And that's how it got started. And then it just kind of, for a while especially, really became more about the wedding flowers. And now it's decor and weddings and photo props and a lot of loose stems just for decorating in your house or putting in your own crafts.
That's great. Thank you. Do you ever have any interest in other crafts or expanding this business into other directions, or is felt your main goal?
It's interesting what sticks. I've always been kind of a serial crafter, what I call creative ADD. Like I like to try a lot of different things. And I reflect on it a lot, that it's interesting that felt flowers is what has stuck for me. I don't really know why. I think I love felt. It's like a great texture. It's very tactile. I love flowers, and there are just so many possibilities. So I'm sticking with that. But I've tried all kinds of different things. I've done watercolor. I've studied interior design. I'm a huge DIYer. I want to make everything. I want to do everything around the house myself, like all of our home improvement projects. And I took a pottery class a year ago for fun, because when you turn a hobby into a business, it still generates a lot of joy, but sometimes you need to do something just for fun. So pottery was a really good creative outlet for me, to know something different and also very tactile. So I'm curious about all forms of creativity. But I think business-wise, felt flowers seems to be the thing that's really stuck with me.
That's great. And speaking of flowers, we have to ask, what are your 3 favorite flowers in the book and in real life?
In the book, I think my favorite flower to teach, or 2 favorite flowers to teach, because they're very popular flowers, and people seem to be surprised at how easily they come together. The lavender is a favorite for people to buy and also to make. It's just a really popular flower. So I love teaching that because it looks very intricate, but there are ways to get that texture in there that are easier than maybe is suspected. And it's a really quick thing to put together, so you can just make lots of them, and it's very satisfying. And I also love, from the book, the peony. That's another one that it's a large, super fluffy flower. It has so much movement in it, and the curvature of the petals. I just love, that's one of my favorite designs. And it also can look a little bit intimidating, but when you break it down step by step and you realize that it's just the sum of these parts, and none of it is very complicated, it's really satisfying, and it's a beautiful flower. And we don't get peonies in Florida, or at least not the part that I'm in. So it's kind of that you always want what you can't have. So I love making peonies all the time. That's what I'm into right now. All I want to do is make peonies, because I can't get them here. In real life, probably my favorite flower in real life, and I really don't make that many of them, is the gardenia. And I think because the gardenia, the form of it is very simple and beautiful, but what really makes it appealing is its fragrance. And I just love the smell of gardenias. It just gives me so many feelings of nostalgia. And yeah, that's my favorite in real person one. And I can't find anything like when I make the gardenias or when I make a magnolia, I find myself wanting to pick them up and smell them, and then they don't smell like anything. So, but yeah, those are my favorite.
That's great. And actually, we have an audience question that goes back to your nostalgia moment. Are your parents creative, or is your family creative, or do you have any creative aunts, uncles, cousins that inspired you, or is it just you?
I think we're all creative in our own ways. Most people don't think that they're especially creative because maybe they, it doesn't show up in ways that you think that it would. But my mom's a teacher, and I think that requires a lot of creativity in a different way. Maybe it doesn't look like a piece of art, but you have to be creative in that way. And my sister, she's a physical therapist, and I think she, has to tap into her creativity a lot also when working with people and helping them. So as far as the arts go, my sister always danced with me. We took dance classes all growing up, so she's got that in her. So yeah, but I think everybody has it. We just kind of we show it in different ways.
That's true. Very true. And I know you mentioned the lavender, which was also one of my favorites. I thought that was super intricate. And I loved how you mentioned how you could add lavender oil to the felt to kind of create like a fragrant floral felt extravaganza, which I love.
Yes, the whole extravaganza.
And I'm wondering, have you ever mixed other mediums, with aromatherapy or other types of floral mediums within your work? Or is that kind of the first time you've endeavored to do that?
The lavender was the first, and really the only one that stuck so far with the aromatherapy, because I think the lavender oil is so authentic. Like when I smell that, I think lavender, and when you see lavender, you just want to inhale it maybe more so than other flowers, because lavender's appeal is its soothing fragrance. So that if people would come by and pick up the bundles of lavender and just smell them, and I would find myself doing the same thing. So that's why I added the oil to that. And I've tried others. A rose oil also is nice, but I haven't added oils to others because some of them can just be overpowering. And, a lot of people like felt flowers because maybe they have allergies. So I try to leave that as an optional thing, but just that little bit of lavender, especially at in-person events, just makes it that much more real.
Absolutely, that was great. And I wonder, speaking of events, I know you mentioned you do felt flowers for weddings and things like that, but what are some other events for our viewers that people can maybe use felt flowers for that you wouldn't maybe expect? Because I think a nice floral bouquet for a wedding is nice, but what else? What other kind of events would you suggest?
Well, my favorite event, sitting at your own kitchen table, if you have a favorite vase and you find yourself either switching out your natural flowers all of the time, which I love fresh flowers. But it's also nice to have something that you can keep for the whole season. So that's probably one of my favorite things, is just to have that that floral element that you don't have to water. And a lot of there's some projects in the books that are plants that will always give you that pop of green or that natural feeling, because I think a lot of the flowers in greenery do look fairly realistic. So it can give you that look, and especially for people who have allergies or, aren't prone to watering their plants or switching out fresh plants. It's that's a great way to use them. I've used some of these projects have been used for, baby showers. You can, like the garland that's in the book, use that to decorate at the shower or at the party, the birthday party, or a photo prop. And then it can go into the nursery or to decorate some other part of the room. So it really can serve double duty. And even like the wedding flowers, you can use them at the wedding, but then you can also take them home and decorate with them or add them to a wreath or a shadow box. So there's a lot. You have options. And you don't have to add your flowers to stems. You can glue them onto a pouch or make artwork for your walls.
That's perfect. Thank you. And I wondered, what would you say to aspiring craft entrepreneurs who are also interested in doing a business like yours? Like, what would be like your 3 top tips or inspirational?
Okay. Sure. I would say, don't feel like you have to have it all figured out when you start. Just do one thing. If you have one thing, like I had one hair barrette, I think I made 3 of them. Don't hesitate to share that. Don't hesitate to let that be your one thing until you know the next thing that you're going to do. It can be hard for the perfectionists in a lot of us to not know exactly what's going to work, what's going to come next. You want to put in a lot of money or have a big picture, and that's good. You need to plan, and at some point you will want to write a business plan. But in the beginning, just do it. Just do the first thing and learn as you go, and then you'll just keep adding to your knowledge, and you'll grow from there. And I've taken a really slow approach to this. I've seen people be more successful in less time, but I guess that would be my second piece of advice is don't compare yourself to other people and other businesses or other creative people. It has nothing to do with you and it'll drive you crazy. Just, do your thing and be inspired by other people, but don't compare yourself to them. And just make sure that you're being authentic to yourself, because you can look at other people's work and think you should be doing that, or you should have reached this many followers. And I guess ultimately those things aren't gonna help you. Yeah, definitely don't compare yourself to others. And let's see, I had one more thing. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help from people and outsource. If you are able to generate some income in the beginning, and it's probably not going to take off right away, it's going to take a while. But as you start to generate income, if you're DIYing everything, it's okay to then outsource some things like your tech. Maybe you're like me and you're a creative person and you like to DIY things. You think, well, I can do my own website, and you can for a while, or I can do my own branding, and you can for a while. But when you're able to trust the experts on these things, I recently rebranded last year. It was long past due, but I had tried to do it myself and just kind of went around and around, didn't trust the decisions I was making. So collaborating with experts will really just get level. So when you're able to do that, that's a good thing to go ahead and do, kind of relinquish a little bit of that control.
That's great, and I completely agree. And now we have some kind of more nitty-gritty questions about the more technical aspects of what you do. They're mostly from the audience, who seem to be very seasoned crafters we have here, which is great. And a question from Liz says, where do you source your felt to find the unusual colors that you find?
Well, I love this question. When I started, I just had grabbed some felt from the craft store, and they have expanded their color selections. But the more I learned, the more I came to know of a type of wool called wool blend felt. So there are, and I talk about this in the book, there are 3 main categories of felt. One is your craft store felt, which is usually a synthetic polyester or acrylic. It's it's kind of fussy to work with. It doesn't hold up. It stretches out. It pills. So that's kind of like your low-level felt. Then the one that I really enjoy working with and actually work with exclusively is wool blend felt. And it is a blend of wool and rayon, I believe. And that's where all the colors really come in. I mean, if you're not inspired by looking at a color swatch of wool blend felt, I'll show you. Like, here's one. These color swatches are from Benzie Design. If you are really into felting, crafting and felting, you probably know about Benzie, but these are the colors that they carry. So I highly recommend them. I've been ordering felt from them for all of my felting years. And you can also do a search on Etsy or, you know, online for wool blend felt, and you'll find it. But like I said, I highly recommend Benzie. They have a great crew there. But that's this type of felt. The third type of felt is a 100% wool, and I just got a little bit of that. I'm going to start playing with it a little bit. There are fewer colors. It's a little thicker, a little stiffer, but for flowers, because you want it to be tough, but you also want it to be a little delicate and mimic flower petals. So the wool blend is like just the right thickness, and it's so easy to work with. It's so much easier to cut than an acrylic or a polyester craft felt. So if you haven't worked with it, I highly suggest it. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. I love those swatches. There's so many colors. That's incredible.
I know. It's so fun to look at.
That's great. Also, someone asked, how do you keep the felt flowers clean? Like, how do you keep dust off of them? And how do you wash them if you need to? Like,
This is an interesting question, because I get this question a lot, and it's not something that I ever would have thought of. But I'm just going to show you. You wouldn't wash them because they would lose their shape. If you did, they would still be beautiful, but they would look like something else. So I have a peony here. I would just like brush it off, but you can see it's okay. You know, like you can just brush it off. I would not use any water or spray it with anything. But yeah, dust, if you were to, I don't know what else would get on them, but you would spot clean it. But I wouldn't throw it in the washing machine. I wouldn't spray it. I would just give it a healthy brush. And they're so resilient. So much better than real flowers in that way.
That's great. That's great. I think in terms of cleaning, spot cleaning seems to be probably the best thing, or even just to keep it simple. Also, someone asked, in terms of timing, if you had to say, it looks like someone is making centerpieces for a 10-table event, and she wants to make like a number of floral centerpieces, and she wants to know how much time will that take her? Like, if she needs to plan ahead for an event, how much time does like a bouquet take you, and how much would it take a beginner?
Oh, that's a really good question, because, and I always tell myself, I'm going to time myself when I make this, but you usually get lost in the moment. So it would depend on how many you've made. I can make a flower in a couple minutes, but my hands, I have the muscle memory. I just can do it because I've done it a lot. So if it's someone who's new to it, then there would be a learning curve. I don't really know how long it would take. I guess you just make one and then see how long it takes you. Some people work really fast. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for that. But you want to play with it too. It's a creative process. So just making the flowers and figuring and getting the arrangement is going to be one thing, but situating it, how you want it to look, is going to be a different thing. So if you're designing the arrangement, also, you're going to have to play around with it.
That makes sense. That's a good answer. Also, we wondered, what are your 3 staple crafting supplies? Like, what are your 3 top? Is it a scissors and like, what are your 3 you must have?
Okay, I must have, well, all of my felt. I have so much felt. I must have that. It has to be good felt. I must have super, super sharp scissors. I like this pair of Fiskars. It's got a razor edge. This is my favorite pair right now. I've tried so many pairs of scissors, but the razor edge is great. You can cut through multiple layers of felt. Must have that, and I must have a mini low temp hot glue gun. I don't want a big one. I have lots of these too, and not an expensive one, just like a small one you can hold in your hand. A low temperature does perfectly. You're not going to blister your fingers. It holds the felt beautifully because the felt has so much texture to it. It doesn't have to be a super hot glue gun. The low temp glue guns work great. So those are my must-haves.
That's great. Do you have a favorite brand of scissors or glue gun?
Right now, like I said, I'm loving these Fiskars. Yeah, the glue guns, I don't have a favorite brand of glue gun. I think, let's see what this is. Really, I go through these little $4 low temp glue guns that you get at the craft store. And I like those. I've tried to treat myself to fancy glue guns before, or larger glue guns with different tips on them, like a fine tip. But just the little regular $4, $3 craft store glue gun, I go through them. Maybe a couple a year, but that's my glue gun of choice. It's just the right size too, because you can hold it in your hand while you're gluing without putting it down between every petal. You can glue and stick and hold it all together. So nothing fancy there.
That's great, thank you. And also, what benefits do you think that crafting has had for you during the pandemic? I know is crafting something you do all year round, but did you go a little bit extra during the pandemic or get extra creative, or was it just regular?
I wasn't extra creative. If anything, the pandemic made it a little hard to be creative. The timing of everything kind of went down. I started the book really getting into the meat of working on the nitty-gritty of the book right when everything shut down, and my husband is working from home. My kids are doing school from home. So I went from having many hours in the day to, be in my own thoughts and creativity and kind of daydream about what my next move was going to be. And so now, and actually my husband and kids are still working and schooling from home. So at times I would have a rush of creativity, but a lot of times it's been a little more difficult, as a lot of things have been. But I found my tendencies have been to just keep it more simple. Like at Christmas time, I usually do a lot of different holiday themed stuff. I just did mistletoe and I just kept it really simple. And right now I just want to do really simple arrangements, like really clean arrangements without a lot going on. So I don't know if that's just a reflection of wanting to keep things simple and calm when a lot of things aren't simple and calm. But I wish I had a huge surge of creativity. I did more things around my house and in my yard. I needed to be very physical during a lot of the pandemic.
That's great. I love the idea of doing a felt mistletoe or a felt holly. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think of that. That's great. We have a question from Brenda, who says, which flower would you teach first to an upper elementary student, grades 3 to 5?
I think one of the simplest flowers, the first flower I ever made, and that is just really simple, is a rolled rose. And I didn't make this up, you just cut out kind of a roundish shape, and then you cut a swirl in it and you roll it up and add glue as you go. That's a really simple one because there's not a lot of intricate cutting. There's a lot of room. I won't say for error, but you have a lot of leeway with that one. It's just cut the spiral and roll it up. And my kids love making that. I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. And you would kind of be surprised, a lot of them, what they can actually do. Let's see, what's another good one? The little wildflowers are a lot of fun. Let's see. This is a little crown that's in the book, but these little wildflowers come together really, really easily. Yeah, those would be my two probably go-tos for a younger group.
That's great. And we also have someone here who has a fiber group. So I guess it's kind of like a textile and fiber club. And what would be a good beginners for more adults? Like if it's, for kids, I'm assuming the rolled flower is very easy, but for adults, you can do a little bit more difficult for a beginner challenge. What would you recommend there?
Really, any of the projects in the book are really doable, especially if you have a fiber club. I'm assuming you're good with, working with your hands and being creative. So any of these, I think one that is really satisfying is the garland. If you have a need for that, because you get to make, in the book, it's a rose and peony garland. So you make 3 roses, 3 peonies, and then you do a lot of greenery and you attach it to the wire base. I feel like that's a good bang for your buck as far as the skills that you need and what you produce out of it. But I also love, here, let me grab this. It's a little bit smushed, but the hoops. In the book, I have a succulent hoop, and it's like these little embroidery hoops. So the book, I show you how to make one with succulents on it, but you could replace that with any of the flowers you make in the book. And so that's a nice little thing that comes together pretty easily.
That's great. Also, other than single flowers, what kind of other projects are your favorites in the books? I know you have kind of making the single individuals, but do you have a favorite bouquet? Like, do peonies and roses are your favorite, or what's your favorite combo?
That's a good question. I do love the combination of peonies and roses. It changes. It changes a lot. One of my favorite things is greenery. I love flowers, obviously, but I think greenery is kind of the unsung hero. And I think in the book, I show you how to make different types of greenery and different branches. And I think it just always makes things so much more lush, and it pulls it all together. A bunch of flowers is beautiful, but with the greenery in it, it's so, it just is so lifelike, and gives it so much movement. And so I'll show you, this is one of my favorites. This is just an olive branch wreath, which I think is really cool as is. But it's so easy to take this project and just add in, your flower. So any flower with lots of greenery is my favorite combination.
Wow. That was gorgeous. I love the greenery with the flower as well. It's such a nice touch. And also, I loved the headbands were so nice. The headbands and the garlands, especially for kids, are great. So I think that was awesome. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I wanted to ask you, it's been so great. It's obvious you have a lot of passion for your projects, and it's a great book. It's very beautiful to look at as well. And I wonder, do you have any closing thoughts, anything you want to share with your fellow crafters before you close out?
Just thank you. I'm so grateful and appreciative that people are interested in what I'm doing, and care to see the projects that I've done or have questions for me. I think that's really amazing. And I'm really appreciative of that and this opportunity to be here. And I'm on social media. So if you have questions as you're working through the book, you can send me a message. And I'm happy to answer. I love telling people what I've figured out with felt. So I'm happy to answer questions.
That's fantastic. And what's your Instagram handle or anything so we can share?
On Instagram, it's at Flourish Felt Flower Co. So all together, Flourish Felt Flower Co. But flourish is spelled with an E, like FLEURISH, so like flower, fleur.
Got it. Okay. Well, write it down, everyone. And one last question for you. Looks like from Nancy Bertolino. Do you by any chance have the mobile you made nearby to show, like the mobile?
Oh, I don't. And that, yeah, I made that a long time ago, and it was birds. It was not even floral, but I have made bubbles since then. I don't have any to show, but maybe that's another tutorial I should put together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much. This has been so fun. I think this is such a fun topic for me. It's rare that I get to talk about crafts because I love crafts as well. So thank you, and just good luck with everything. And we were so happy to have you today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Absolutely. Well, that was wonderful. It was so nice to meet her, and I hope all you guys got a lot of information about your crafts and about your craft clubs. The next Books on Tap Live event is next Wednesday, January 27th, with YA novelist Angeline Booley, who will be discussing her new book, Firekeeper's Daughter. Please sign up to receive a reminder of the event at publishersweekly.com/booksontap live, and we hope you can join us then. I hope you guys had a great time. Take care.